Hello, I am the biblical translator, and today's passage comes from Mark 12:18. Then Jesus was approached by some Sadducees, religious leaders who say there is no resurrection from the dead. They pose this question: Teacher, Moses gave us a law that if a man dies, leaving a wife without children, his brother should marry the widow and have a child who will carry on the brother's name. Well, supposing there was 7 brothers. The oldest one married and then died without children. So the second brother married the widow, but he also died without children. Then the third brother married her, and this continued with all 7 of them. And still there were no children. Last of all, the woman also died. So tell us, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? For all 7 were married to her. Jesus replied, Your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures, and you don't know the power of God. For when the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given to marriage. In this respect, they will be like the angels in heaven. But now, as to whether the dead will be raised, haven't you ever read about this in the writings of Moses, in the story of the burning bush? Long after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had died, God said to Moses, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So he is the God of the living, not the dead. You have made a serious error. So, what did I extract from this scripture? Well, first, when I think about resurrection, I wonder whether they're talking about the literal resurrection, as in the resurrection of Christ, or whether we can think about resurrection as restoration through memories, through music, through videos. Have you ever watched movies of people who are dead? Well, we do all the time. We watch movies of dead actors, and it's almost like they're alive. We actually, or the directors, bring them to life and immortalize them almost by showing us the picture, the photograph, and reinstating them in our memory. So when we're thinking about resurrection of the dead, yes, people die in the physical sense, but as they say, I'll always carry you in my heart and will always remember those people who are close to us. In Jesus' case, he literally resurrected. And after 3 days, and he made sure he connected with his disciples, and then he went up with the Father. So when I was reading that chapter, and they were asking him about whose husband the widow was, considering she didn't have any children, and it seemed so important for her or the family to have a legacy. And that is another way. A legacy is another way of restoring the memory. When people leave a legacy to their family members, it's a way of extending that memory, isn't it? So I was thinking that how important it is to have children, how important it is to carry on the legacy of the family, especially along the male line, because they want the child to have their name. And so I believe, well, this is just my opinion, that this scripture is showing us the importance of memory, the importance of carrying over, the importance of carrying on the memory of a person. And that is why Jesus said, God isn't a God of the living, a God of the dead. He is a God of the living, because the living can carry on the memory. But also those who have been resurrected in God's sight, they will also restore his memory. So I think I've already said that about they're complicating it by adding the number of brothers. And I was wondering, in that context, which one of the brothers were she could call her husband in the resurrection. And it doesn't apply, because once you pass over and if you're on the God side, what he's saying is your past won't matter. That is what one effect is saying. It doesn't matter how many husbands she had. It doesn't matter what life you lived. What matters is how you lived up to the point that you died. And so I would imagine that and the thing is that once they're dead, none of them can restore her memory. None of them can bring her back to life through memory. So it's null and void. This is just my opinion. Jesus said, when the dead rise, they will neither marry or be given to marriage. In this respect, they will be like angels in heaven. And like I said, these are the angels. The angels are the ones, the chosen ones. And all their past will be obliterated. All the wrongs that they have done, God's grace has obliterated all sin. And it's a kind of a wonderful feeling, don't you think? That when you pass over, if you've lived your best life according to God's law, you don't have to worry about all the mistakes you've made. You've repented. You've kind of genuinely apologized, and you are trying. God doesn't expect perfection from us. He just expects us to try and do our best to live a life, and follow his commandments. How difficult is it to love? And it seems to be so difficult these days because that is the main commandment that wipes out all the other commandments. Because if you love, you will not kill. If you love, you will not steal. If you love, you will not covet. If you love, you will not dishonor your parents. So when you think how easy it is to love someone, and the reason why it's not easy today is because we've been conditioned to be selfish. We've been conditioned to mistrust everyone. And we've been conditioned to only look out for ourselves. We all have a narcissistic quality about us that says, I am important. I am more important than the next person. And so you don't look out for the next person. So, all I'm saying in this for today's scripture is that, especially over the season, think about who you can show love to. Think about those people who you still have a grudge against. And if they've passed on, do the Gestalt therapy. Imagine them in a chair. Talk to them. Make your peace with them. Restore, get it out of your system. And then you can go into the new year with peace in your soul. And you can try to love people, because if you've got some kind of resentment or guilt or anger against someone, you can't love, you can't have peace. So it's very important that you are free, you free yourself. And that's why the Gestalt therapy is so important, because you imagine that person who has hurt you in that chair and you talk to them and you get everything out of your system. Or if you don't want to do that because it sounds too freaky, you can write it down. Journal your feelings. Write a letter to that person who you have a grudge against. Tell them everything that they've done to you, why they've betrayed you and why you feel hurt. And tell them that you have forgiven them, so that you can move on into the new year, or just henceforth, with peace and a light heart. Well, I'm the biblical translator. I'm so called because I like to take aspects of the Bible and try to relate it to today so that it becomes relatable and relevant, and we can all join in and not see the Bible as outdated and old-fashioned. And so that's all for now. Bye-bye.